wanted to make sure I ran through the description of these 6 graphs you had to do for homework. One thing though that I need to be careful of is that you guys did not actually have to do any motion maps, so I'm just going to go ahead and cover that up, and I'll use this space to do some explanations. So let's start with graph number 1, and we want a description of the motion. And so here is exactly how I want it described on the exam. It goes forward at constant velocity, and then I would want you to write it goes backwards faster at constant velocity and returns to 0. I would also want you to say that it starts away from the 0 mark, and that's positive. You need to say all of that. Okay? So the description of the motion in number 2. Actually, you know what? Let's do the graphs first. So if I'm going to do the graphs for the kinematics, if I were to plot the velocity versus time, I'd want to plot the velocity. Remember, it's going at a constant velocity, so that means the velocity graph is flat because it never changes. And I want you to notice something else. When I have the graph of the velocity going backwards, it's actually lowered down. In other words, it's further away from 0. This fact, the fact that this distance is less than this distance, means that that means a faster speed. So I just wanted to point that out. The last thing is, since it's moving at constant velocity, that means it has absolutely no acceleration. So I would just draw a flat line right here for the acceleration. Now for number 2, let's go ahead and describe the motion. So it starts, you must always talk about where it starts. It starts away from 0 with a positive distance, and because it's above the origin, it starts away from 0, positive, and it starts from, I would actually say, rest. How do I know from rest? Because when I look at the slope here, it's flat. Remember, a flat position slope means rest. So it starts from rest and speeds up going forward. And again, the reason I know it's speeding up going forward is that this is steeper here. And if you remember from the buggy lab, a steeper slope on a position graph means the object's moving faster. If I were to plot the velocity versus time, I start from rest and go faster and faster. And finally, the acceleration graph is going to look like this. All right, let's finish up the problem on this page. So the description of the motion here is, again, we start from rest. You need to write all of that away from 0. Again, that's positive, a positive position away from 0. And then we go backwards. I know that because we're returning to the origin. We're returning to the 0 point on the ruler, speeding up. And I know we're speeding up because if you notice, the slope is getting steeper and also more negative, so we're moving backwards. So the velocity graph is going to start from 0 and it's going to get more and more negative. And the acceleration, well, the acceleration is trying to pull this object backwards, so it's a negative acceleration. All right, that's the first 3 graphs, and I'm going to go ahead and do the last 3 graphs in the next video.